There she is.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, I like a hearty good morning. Oh, I like it. Thank you. And I haven't seen you for a while, sir. So it's so wonderful to see you. I know that we have people on Zoom today, so I want to say hi and welcome. And I think I actually have some family members there in Zoom world. So let's start off with what the script says so I don't go off script yet. Welcome to First UU. My name is Becca, and I use the pronouns of she and her. Today, I am wearing a green shirt. This is my power shirt. So I'm wearing my green shirt, black slacks. I have red curly hair, and I am 48 and proud of it. If this is your first time here, or your third, or your 50th, we welcome you. Let us begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Niukanska people, known sometimes by the name Osage. The descendants of the people who were forcefully removed from this land make up the Osage Nation. We acknowledge their continued struggle for justice. The chalice lighter in the sanctuary today is Lynn. Hi, Lynn. Good to see you.
Talking about the illegal immigrants being removed.
The chalice lighting words are a shared story by Reverend Sandra Feast. For the stories that long to be told and retold, for the stories that long to be imagined and reimagined, for the stories that long to be envisioned and celebrated, we kindle this chalice. May its flame bring the light of different truths, different paths, and different voices, all needed to cultivate a transformative story of justice, love, and beauty.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Okay, I guess it's my turn again. Y'all probably see that I have a stuffed animal with me, just to kind of, put the elephant in the room. I realize I think it's time for me to have a therapy dog. Seriously, and I actually have a dog at home that is in therapy dog training. So really for other people, and I realize I need him today. So since he can't be here, I have my therapy cow. So let me just get my phone and kind of get here on with you because this is a little bit of a emotional that I'm going to be talking about, and I need just a quick second. So a few minutes ago, I introduced myself as Becca. While that is true, that's not the whole story. Please allow me to introduce myself. Good morning. My name is Rebecca Ann Gray. I grew up in a small town in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. It's 26.2 miles from Boston because we're the start of the Boston Marathon. My grandmother moved to Massachusetts when she was 12 years old. She came on, I think it was called the USS Athena, from Scotland with her family in 1927 or 1928. She was my best friend. And this isn't even the sad part yet. Gosh. Oh my gosh. So she passed away at 101 years old, and I was fortunate to literally hold her hand when she took her last breath. So, okay, let's see. Let's pinch. Okay. 5 years ago, I moved out here to Springfield to be closer to my parents. Hi, Mom and Dad, if you're watching. And it was the best decision I made. So just a quick second of housekeeping. Today, I am speaking here with you at UU because you guys are my safe spot. Things I might talk about today might affect people differently because of your own stories and your own challenges. And I welcome you, just as we do every Sunday. If you're in here and if it's not working for you, please step outside, bring yourself back together, and come back when you're ready. But please don't do it all at once because that would really hurt my feelings. So maybe, so maybe we can do like that side, take a turn, and that side, take a turn, you know. So that is kind of where we are right now. Let's see, what else did I want to share kind of before we go? By also going outside and taking a moment, a good friend who's here today, said, make sure you put your mask on first. And we always talk about that when you're in the airplane. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. But what are ways you can take, put the mask on for yourself? Walking out of the room, breathing for a few minutes to yourself. But just know that kind of throughout the journey that you guys are on with me today. And I promise it's only going to be around 10 minutes because it's a long service, that this plane will stabilize again. Okay, so I'm going to bring it all back. Let's talk about how stories are created. So, everybody's reality is different. You guys are part of my story today, and I'm part of yours. Feel free to erase it when you walk out of this room. But also stories are part of what we hear on the radio, the songs we hear, the news stations we listen to, the friends we surrounded ourselves with. And sometimes that's a beautiful reality. But when we're isolated, whether by choice or sickness or being in an abusive relationship, your reality can be skewed. So I just want to share that with you, that sometimes your reality is skewed a little bit, and it's okay. You'll come back to it. So music plays a large role in my life. And one song that really inspires me is One Man Can Change the World by Big Sean. And if you haven't heard it before, which some of you may have not, there's 3 different songs that I'll talk about today. And I like to say, yeah, well, one woman can change the world too. Women and men, we can both change the world. But not until this morning did I actually watch the music video to it. And it is beautiful. It starts with a young child and kind of in an urban atmosphere. And, he's even packing what do they call it? A paleteria, like an ice cream pushing cart. And it's open, and the local gang members are throwing their guns in there first. He pours his ice cream on top, and then he's walking around selling. So already at a young age, he's kind of being used. But it's just a really beautiful song in a video. And at the end, the gentleman is at a podium speaking at his grandmother's funeral. And there's an audio. And the grandmother says, and I don't know if it's from this man's life, says, "Thank you so much for calling me. I've been thinking about you." And he says, "No problem, Grandma. I love you." And that song just really touches my life and also, brings me back to my time with my grandmother, who was just, again, my rock. And at 101, still with a Scottish brogue, even though she left Scotland when she was 12, she was a moment of grace and just beauty. Laura, feel free to flag me down if I go over time because I didn't even set my alarm here. What I think I really wanted to talk about today, and there's so many avenues that I could go. But I think one thing that's important to me is to share about advocacy, advocating for yourself, for your mental health, for your physical health, and for people around you. So 15 years ago, I was in an abusive relationship. I'm going to call this guy Jeremy because he now has a wife and children, and hopefully he got the treatment he needed. It wasn't physical abuse until the end. So I thought, hey, I'm not in an abusive relationship. And I didn't understand until recently that pinches and pushes and being told that you're a bleep, ungrateful bleep are considered abuse and isolation and things like that. And excuse me, I just realized one thing I should point out is if anybody needs to bring people under 18 out of the room, please feel comfortable to do so. And so over that time, I became very isolated. I was living in New Mexico at the time. My parents were, I guess, in Massachusetts. Everybody else was somewhere else. And I was so isolated that my reality started getting skewed. In the end, because of the trauma from that and not sleeping for a few days, which I know sometimes that happens to some people, lack of sleep is real. It really is real. And a psychotic break doesn't mean that you have mental issues. It just means that your body is taking care of yourself and is breaking you down and saying, that's enough. So instead of getting the family help and the loving help and everything that I needed, this boyfriend that I loved at the time, Jeremy, checked me into a mental hospital. And what could have been, say, a 72-hour hold, like could be needed for some people, turned into 3 weeks. I lost my job. And what the doctors were sharing with my parents, my parents thought was reality. So to lighten the load a little bit, when I was there, I was diagnosed with bipolar, started on lithium, and this was 15 years ago. Medicine is wonderful if you need it. If you're taking a medicine that you don't need, it is a poison and it is a toxin. So 3 months ago, thankfully, I saw a wonderful psychiatrist here and he listened to me, which doesn't happen all too often, especially in the psychiatry field. And at first he started his spiel, yeah, I'll see you in 90 days and just refill. I said, no, please. I don't want this copy and paste. I don't think this is me. I don't think this is my diagnosis. Can you listen to me? And he listened and he said, you know what? I don't hear bipolar. So this is what we're going to do. I'm not going to refill your lithium. Let's talk in a month. I imagine you're going to have some psychotic breaks if you are bipolar. Come back in a month. Better than ever. My skin feels better. Lost 10 pounds in a month. And he said, you know what? Thank you. You were misdiagnosed. And you should have never been on lithium for 15 years. So I want to share that because of you guys, I am a new me. And I would to say this here in this safe space means more to me than you will ever know. So let's set that aside and talk about two cute little things quick, and then we'll move on so that this service isn't 3 hours long. So you all probably know that I'm heavily into animal rescue. I probably have more than the legal limit, but I only own 4 dogs. If animal control is listening to me, it's true. And own 2 cats. Everybody else is fostered, so it's technically not breaking the law. I have 2 small dogs that are in my house. Puffy, who's the meanest Chihuahua that you'll ever meet, and Flannery. Flannery is a new foster that just came from the homeless shelter. Oftentimes what happens is people that don't have their dogs spayed or neutered, they'll actually drop litters off at the homeless shelter. And that's not cool. But this one beautiful woman, she took in this puppy. She had just recently lost her son. But it was a really cold night and the puppy wasn't doing well. And so they reached out to me. And even though it was so painful for her, she surrendered that puppy to me out of love. And that puppy, Flannery, is this little cute thing that has a sass. I would say French Bulldog mix that when I started with her 4 weeks ago, both ears were folded. 2 weeks ago, zoop, one went up. 2 days ago, zoop, the other one went up. And now there's a member here in UU that may adopt her. And even if she doesn't, that's okay. She's part of her story. And you know what? I think I am ready to stop talking. So, so much more. And I wanted to say it a little more eloquently, but I appreciate you guys taking this path with me. Letting me cry and not hugging me afterwards because I can't take any hugs afterwards. And I just want to thank you for being part of my journey. And I hope I'm a little part of yours today. Okay. Okay. Now it looks like I need to talk again. Gosh, this is a long service. Okay. Let's talk about our song for the month. Our song for the month of January, when our theme is living love through the practice of story, is Here We Have Gathered, number 360 in the gray hymnal. I know some of you might want to sit, but it's going to be a long service, so feel free to stand if you'd like.
Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered, gal, to celebrate days of our lifetime, never small and great. We of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's
Good morning. My name's Anna. My pronouns are she, her. I'm wearing a black shirt and a very cozy sweater this morning. I do have a few announcements. So after the meeting, the RE committee is going to meet really quick to discuss some important changes. My story is changing. I've started a self-directed learning community and it's blossomed, and my brain is spread thin. So it has been a blessing to be a part of the RE committee downstairs, but I am stepping aside, not leaving, still here, but we're going to have to divvy up those responsibilities. So if you want to kind of be a part of that conversation, we are going to meet really quick. Hopefully we're not here till 5 after that meeting. Okay, I know. We're going to tell lots of stories this month, stories about how we are the authors of our own stories, stories about how sharing things about us and being open helps us connect with others, and stories about how we can build a better world. Today, we're going to be exploring and telling a love story. Now, I know some of you might be saying, what, a love story at church? So let me be a bit clearer. Today, downstairs, we're going to be making a house that welcomes everybody. A story of Unitarian Universalism and how we are a people of love, a people who put love at the center of all that we do. So yes, the love story is perfect for today, and here it is. It's called The Platinum Rule by April Rosario. Once upon a time, there was a child who had been taught to live by the golden rule. Has anyone ever heard of the golden rule? The golden rule says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. At first, the child thought this was a great idea and that would help them get a bunch of friends. So they decided that they were going to stick to this rule no matter what. On their first day of school, they decided to make a bunch of PB&J sandwiches because that was their favorite, and take them to school and to give it to all the kids. The next morning, the child was as happy as they had ever been and skipped all the way to school. At snack time, the child began handing out the sandwiches to the rest of the class. But to their surprise, 2 kids in her class tried to give them back. The child was confused and hurt, but they stuck to the golden rule and said, these are my favorite, and I want to treat you the way I want to be treated, and so you must eat them. This turned into a big argument, and the teacher eventually had to step in. The teacher took the child aside and asked them why they would insist that the class eat the sandwiches. The child explained that they had decided to live by the golden rule, no matter what, and that they were only trying to make friends. Teacher smiled and said, I completely understand. However, those 2 children are allergic to peanuts and would never have been able to eat those sandwiches. The child is heartbroken. This was not what they had wanted at all. The teacher, seeing how upset they got, said, I have a better idea. Have you ever heard of the platinum promise? The child shook their head. Well, then let me tell you, the teacher said. You were trying to live by the golden rule that tells you to treat others the same as you want to be treated. But the platinum promise asks us to treat people the way they would want to be treated. The child liked the sound of this and asked the children if they liked just jelly sandwiches. The truth is, they both did very much, and so the next day, the child brought in 2 plain jelly sandwiches for their new friends and 1 PB&J for herself. I think many of us have been taught the golden rule, and on the surface, it's a great rule. But when we look deeper, it really only works if everyone is the same as you are. However, the truth is we are all not the same. What I love about this story is how it helps us see that treating others as they want to be treated is one of the ways we can ask, how can I love you? It's just one more example of what it looks like when we center love as our new UU values ask us to do. But it is important to understand that our values are just the newest chapter in our long and consistent story of love. Oh, reverse. If you need some more movement, I'm headed downstairs.
I offering our gifts to support the work of building inclusive and just communities. Is this where we're supposed to be right now? Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, let's just start that one over. Okay. Offering our gifts to support the work of building inclusive and just communities is one of the many ways that we live into justice and equity together. Some of us have much to give, and some have little, and together it is enough. We are enough to work together for a world where every human can live into their best and most authentic self. If electronic giving is your preferred method, or if you are on Zoom, virtual giving options are available via our website, springfielduu.org. The offertory today is Promenade, from pictures at an exhibition by Modest Musgorski, performed by our John and Eva. Thank you.
Good morning. Well, my name is also Becca. So I think you've discovered that today you're going to have Rebecca's in stereo. I'm Becca Reynolds. I am reading the message today. It is entitled The Stories We Tell Ourselves, and it is originally from the Reverend Kaaren. I think it's Kaaren. Kaaren, thank you. I had a 50-50 shot, Kaaren Anderson, who serves First Parish Brewster UU in Massachusetts. And these are her words. It was just over 3 years ago. In November, I got one of those calls. The kind where the person on the other end of the line tells you to sit down. They don't ask if you're sitting, they just tell you to. So I promptly sat down. Max is dead. That's what I heard on the other end of the line. Max is gone. He was 27. Max is the only son, the only child of one of my very best friends. In middle school and high school, I was pretty tight with this kid, as he and I did a lot of work nationally with Planned Parenthood, reproductive health, and sex education. Suffice it to say, the news laid me flat, had me staring out of windows, empty, vacant, and as my friend says over the loss of her son, inconsolable. I was that too. I did Max's memorial in early December in Rochester, New York. I connected daily with my friends about all the aspects of what needed to be said, how to say it, when to say it, and with what tone, in what manner, ultimately, how to celebrate this truly remarkable young man's life. Writing a eulogy of service of remembrance at its best, telling the story of someone's life. It's telling the story that draws out the meaning of that life and helps those who mourn hold on to something true and bright. Teasing out something about who they were that can live on in others as a means to have and hold that person. I'm always trying to find something about the deceased that is essential to their being and helps others integrate that into their life. As I was going through the telling of the story of Max's life, as I mourned and wrote and mourned and wrote, I came across something that cut through the haze, that opened me up to the living, to those of us alive, a bit more. It's a piece by Dick Gilbert called Celebrate the Interval. Life is a brief interval between birth and death. It is composed of a few notes between prelude and postlude. It is a drama quickly played between the rising and falling of a curtain. What shall we do with that interval of time? What combinations of notes shall we play? The brevity of day is full of pain. Discordant notes reverberate in the soul. The ending of the play is never in doubt. Why then are we so careless with time? Why do we not sound the music of our hearts? Is it not time to play our own melody? Life is a brief interval between birth and death. May we celebrate the interval with joy. May we sing the song belonging to us. May we act as though our very life depended on it. Because it does. Here's what struck me. May we sing the song belonging to us. Max had his own song he was working on, and it got cut short in the second movement. When working on Max's memorial and reading Dick's piece, something shifted in me. It was small and grand at the same time. It is often said that ministers have about 5 sermons in them that repeat over and over again, as in the themes they hit on. And while I balk a little bit at that, in some ways it's true. I could likely tell you my 5 touchstones, and after 25 years of doing this, I didn't really think they'd change at all. And yet, while working on Max's memorial, as I said, I had this shift. And it was this. I started having a great deal of empathy for the living. Yes, empathy. Mainly because over the years, I've watched way too many people get stuck on the same note or stuck in one movement of their life, or just when they had a crescendo flourishing, they started decrescendo, not of their own making, and yet sometimes of their own making. Hell, I've gotten stuck myself more often than I want to admit. And well, it's infuriating, actually, because I know the song that belongs to me, and yet I can get waylaid, sometimes immobilized on one note. There are a lot of reasons for that, but today I wanted to touch on 2 of them that I think contribute to the derailment of living into the song that belongs to us, the song that belongs only to you. Reminders of sorts to carry with you. The first reminder. A friend of mine is Korean and was adopted by a white family here in the United States. I'm not going to use my friend's real name, so I'm going to call her Lynn. One day, Lynn started talking to me about the stories that we are told, the ones we know to be true as they kind of shape who we are and as we grow up into the world. The story that Lynn was told about her adoption from Korea was this. that she was brought to the adoption agency in Korea in a basket with cleaned, pressed clothes on, swaddled in a nice blanket, and a note pinned to the front of her chest that said, "Please help take care of our family. We're very poor, and you can make a difference to our child." It was a sweet story, right? A story of concern and care. Now, Lynn said she always believed that story as her parents had told it to her, and it was a nice story to hold on to start yourself out in the world. Lynn said she never questioned the story until she went to college. Now, I should also say that she was telling me the story. She showed me some burn marks that she had on her arm and on the back of her legs. When at college, Lynn took a lot of international women's studies courses, and in one of those courses, she discovered that Korea, China, and Russia sent thousands of female babies to the United States in the 1980s. And Lynn realized that her story may not have been so rosy because none of those stories she was hearing were so rosy. None of them. It occurred to Lynn that there was a good chance that the burn marks that scarred her skin were not by accident, but intentional. And in that fact, she was a neglected child, not a loved one before she was adopted. Fast forward a couple of years later, and it turns out Lynn had a coworker whose niece was about her age, adopted and of Korean descent. This young woman, the niece, went back to Korea to really find out more about her birth story and figure out who her birth parents were. When she got to the adoption agency, she was told the same exact story that Lynn was told, that she showed up in a basket, clean clothes, laundered blanket, the same details, down to the exact same words pinned to her chest. The exact same. When my friend heard that, she said that the mythical origin story was shattered immediately for her. The likelihood that her burn marks were accidental and that the story her parents had told her were true went right out the window. She came to terms with the fact that she was probably left to die somewhere in a field or in a trash can or on the street, exactly as she had heard about in so many cases in her women's studies class. She says her parents probably knew this too, but they liked believing the story and they wanted her to believe it as well. I can understand that from her parents' point of view. It's a compassionate thing to do, to tell your child the sweet story. But when Lynn told her parents the real story, they did not want to alter the original storyline. Or as she said, maybe they couldn't. They needed to hold on to the myth. As for my friend, she's grateful for the truth. It changed her own perception of herself or who she knew herself to be at her core. Or perhaps the better way to say it is, it solidified who she knew herself to be: resilient, flexible, and strong. She said her desire to leave the world a better place has always felt like it came from somewhere deep in her consciences, in her bones. And if you knew her, that's all she does with her life. She's constantly engaged with social justice work at a very fundamental and personal level. So here's the thing. My friend Lynn isn't just going to go back and revising the story that was told to her, making the story more tender through forgiveness or through revision or reframing it. My friend, in effect, became the fulcrum, the hinge that sets the story on a new path forward. She changed the tempo of her song, moved it to a new key, and cut through the dissonance that was brewing in the background and got real about her song. Lynn is not a person who says, I was an abused, abandoned, and unwanted child. As an adult, she is saying, I am a person who can look at my very dark past and realize that is my story. But it's not me. But it's not me. I tell you this because I think so many of us have dark and difficult pasts. We have things done to us, tragedies that befell us, or we've participated in our own demise, our own colossal missteps. And we end up describing our stories through lenses that identify primarily with the tragedy. Victim, abandoned, abused, survivor, addicted, unwanted. But our dark past isn't us. It's part of a story. Your story that can be written in a way that empowers you to own something about your life and move on. You are not defined by a dark past that happened to you. You are you. So shape your story so that it reminds you that you've garnered strength and insight from it, but you're not a product of it. And if you haven't yet garnered strength and insight from it, make it so. Shape the story moving forward. Look to that dark, gloomy past, face it squarely, and come to terms with it as you control it. It doesn't control you. I love how one journalist puts this. The difference between despair and hope is just a different way of telling stories from the same set of facts. The second reminder is about how we can get derailed from living into our song and how we can get back to it. We are usually much harsher narrators of our own stories than others are when they tell our stories. I know you may be thinking that your story unfolds as you go along, but in reality, we are constantly writing the story. As one author puts it, we have memories of the past, our history, and every day finds us weaving a story about who we are, where we are going, and why events happened as they did. And many of us are strikingly hard narrators of those life stories. We hint to ourselves that we've been morons from the beginning. The truth is, we mess up a lot as humans. We just do. One of my favorite lyrics of the pop country star Taylor Swift is, "Once upon a time, a few mistakes ago, I was in your sights. You got me alone." I love that clip. A few mistakes ago. Not the last time I made a mistake, but a few mistakes ago. We make mistakes often, and some of us with aplomb. Well, all of us with aplomb at one time or another. But hey, life can be meaningful, great even, with a lot of failure and humiliation. I love how this little video by the School of Life puts it. Mistakes don't have to be absurd. They can be signs of how little information we have with which to base the most consequential decisions. Messing up isn't a sign of evil. It's evidence that we're up against. It's evidence of what we're up against. Now, all the disasters are wasted away. Maybe we spent a decade not quite knowing what we wanted to do with ourselves professionally. Maybe we went through a series of failed relationships that left us confused and hurt a lot of people. But these experiences weren't meaningless because they were necessary for later development and maturity. We needed a career crisis to understand our work identities. We had to fail at love to fathom our hearts. No one gets anywhere important in just one go. We have to forgive ourselves the horrors of our first draft. Good storytellers recognize that contrary to certain impressions, the central character of the story isn't always responsible for every disaster or triumph. Now, there's a lot to unpack in that, but I think what rings true for me the most is we have to forgive ourselves the horrors of our first draft. We have to forgive ourselves the horrors of our first draft. The first marriage that failed, or even the second for that matter. The unfulfilled dreams of being an activist, an artist, a parent. The career that ended in shambles because of a bad temper, a lack of know-how, or defensiveness on your part. The errors and missteps in reaching beyond our introvertedness to finally connect, or the foibles of our extrovertedness that keep us from listening effectively to others. The relationship with a friend or colleague that ended poorly because of a lack of compromise or a difference in values. The frustrated dreams of never living abroad or joining the Peace Corps. The schooling that fell through because of frontal lobes not being fully developed or a lack of ambition or motivation. Now, some of those are ours to own, and others are due to circumstances beyond our control. The economy, your parents, the government, your enemies. The truth is usually, okay, almost always, it's not just us that messed up. It's a combination of outside forces and us. It's both, right? Except often when we look back at our first drafts, well, it's only us. At least that's what we tell ourselves. I have yet to write anything where my first draft is, well, good. It takes revisions, edits, cuts, consideration, reevaluating, better writing. Life is that. It's a first draft. But well, we hope we get better at it as we go along. And friends, in writing those stories, your story, your song, don't let the first draft be the last draft. Revise, edit, cut, work at becoming a better writer. Learn from the mistakes of the draft and grow. Change the story. One of the reasons we end up looking at the first draft and then getting stuck is because we look around at the rest of the people in our lives, friends, colleagues, other parishioners, neighbors, leaders, and what we see on the surface is well, bright and shiny and glowing in the sun. But what if I told you that what you think is shining and bright is often well, not the entire story? I am a humanist, as is my husband, Scott. The two of us talk about humans as being the 4 F's. Fragile, flawed, effed up, and well, fabulous too. I often think of my job as a minister as helping people live into the fabulous part of their humanhood and also just accept that we are the other 3 F's as well. All of us. No one is exempt. I've come to see my work as a pastor to help all of us think of the world out there as being one big ocean. We look out at our neighbors and friends, and we see their lives, other people's lives, as beautiful icebergs jutting out from the ocean, shiny, reflective in the sunlight, immensely beautiful. And my job is to lower the water for all of you to see how massive the icebergs are. Oops, don't lose my place. So we can see the majority of people's lives, even when we think we do. We don't see that which is covered in water, the bulk of the iceberg that resides in the pitch black of the water. So the lower the water line means we get a glimpse into the human condition that we all are, well, fragile, flawed, effed up, and well, fabulous too. Today I'm lowering the water for you so you can see that you are no different than the next person in the pew sitting right there. You may think your mistakes are unique, only yours to have and to hold, but you're not that special. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean that honestly, clearly, as a point of fact. The question is, how do you not get tripped up on your first draft, given the fact that first drafts, for the most part, are crap? Well, first, forgive yourself and others. To forgive doesn't mean you forget. It means you release yourself and others from a time and place that has you stuck. Self-forgiveness is essential, and then you can move on. I know of an art teacher who, when you made a mistake, they'd say to you, well, you made a mistake. Now make it beautiful. Not erase it or gloss over it, paint over it or scratch it out, but make it beautiful. That's what we do with our mistakes. We make them beautiful. A colleague, David Blanchard, has a meditation called Listening for Our Song, and he wrote this. On a sabbatical in East Africa, I heard a story of a people who believe that we are each created with our own song. Their tradition as a community is to honor that song by singing it as a celebration when a child is born, as a comfort when the child is ill, in celebration when the child marries, and an affirmation in love when death comes. Most of us are not welcomed into the world in that way. Few of us seem to know our song. I love the idea, all of us having a song when we are born, and then, well, we go about singing it back to us when we need it, having it sing back to us when we need it. Perhaps that's what my colleague Dick is getting at with the song that belongs to us. The song that, whether we acknowledge it or not, we can get ourselves stuck in, singing only the verse of. We don't let the song turn into a symphony with different movements and tempos and keys because we don't, well, believe we can expand it. But we can, and we should. So here's the thing. After doing Max's memorial and spending the last 3 years being present with my friend, who reminds herself each day the importance of her own living, I've decided I need to ask you a favor. It's this. I'm asking you to realize that many of us get stuck in the second movement of our song, not because of death, but because we make it so. Most of us are into the third or fourth movement of our song in reality, and yet still singing the song in the first or second movement. Our first drafts. I'm imploring you on this day, please don't become the dead among the living. Please resist that, friends. Let's all help each other resist that. And by doing so, let's open our songs. Let's make them a symphony. Let all the instruments play. Let all the crescendos and decrescendos and the melodies and the harmonies come alive. To put that another way, let's live between the intervals. Death will far too soon take all of us. And it's a tragedy of a different making to not really truly sing our songs in all their color and keys and majesty. So sing your song, friends, fully today and from this day forward. May it be so, and amen. The interlude today is Let the Life I've Lived Speak for Me by Joe Carter, arranged by Andy Davis, and it's performed by the choir. The same hymn was introduced by Kamala Harris and performed last Tuesday at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda in a ceremony honoring the life and work of President Jimmy Carter.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Dunn. My pronouns are she and her. Let's see, I'm 5'9", have a mop of platinum hair, curly, 58 years old, and today I'm wearing one of my favorite colors, teal, and some black slacks that show evidence of my pets at home. Um, let's see, as a community, we share joys and concerns to keep connected. Slips of paper are available at the greeters table for those in the sanctuary to use for joys and concerns. During the week, you may send your joys and concerns by email to pastoralcare@springfielduu.org or by leaving a voicemail on the church phone at 417-883-3922. If you're on Zoom, please use the chat box now for sharing your joys and concerns. All of these joys and concerns will be included in the members' email on Tuesday. We honor each joy or concern with a lighted candle, a symbol of the love we as a community offer for each of these joys and concerns. And I was told your name would be written in here, but I don't see it.
Oh, Lynn.
Lynn, okay. This morning, Lynn will be lighting the candles. We humans are wired to listen to, tell, and respond to stories. Once upon a time are among the most powerful words in any language. In this first month of a new year, imagine that in place of a resolution, you create a story of yourself about you succeeding in the change that you have selected. Storytelling, writes Adrienne Marie Brown, is a way to give someone, including ourselves, an experience they haven't had yet, or maybe didn't even know was possible. And now, as we begin this time of sharing, know that though we are in multiple physical spaces, we are together in beloved community. To begin, we hold in love all of us, those present and those absent. We light a candle for our church community. And I'm going to take this opportunity to share a joy for me, and it's been echoed at this podium. I am so grateful for this community where we are allowed to be ourselves and hear other people's stories and know that we're not alone in the struggle. Laura Parsons has a sorrow for, let's see, I started the wrong way because based on how she wrote it, a sorrow for Laura and Sam Parsons, whose good friend, Nancy Niemeyer, died yesterday after suffering rapidly progressing dementia. We light a candle of concern for the Parsons. I have a joy from Millie. My very handsome 17.5-pound black cat Noah was very sick for 3 days, but has now recovered, is eating and drinking again, and is his lovable self again. We light a candle of joy for Millie. And that's all I have here on the papers. So I'm going to look online and see what we have. All right. There's a concern from Michael Rod Jr. I'm meeting my apartment manager Monday where I will be living. And that's all it says, so I'm not really sure. Yeah, I guess hoping. So anyway, we light a candle of concern for Michael. Jane shares a sadness for the death of her friend Cindy Bade in Texas, who died in early December of lung cancer. We light a candle of sorrow for Jane. Excuse me. Daisha Reed shares that Mark and Judy Magan, who in the past lived in LA, are grieving the fire destruction of their old neighborhood and they are deeply worried for family and friends still living in the area. We light a candle for Mark and Julie of deep concern for all the people impacted by the fires. Oh, absolutely.
Joy,
Okay.
birds allowed by family members back into their places in Pasadena, while the fire may be coming to wipe out our own home. My family, friends are safe.
Okay. Mark was sharing that his family is safe. They were allowed to move back into their home. Let's see. Amber shared a joy for the sharing from both the Beccas today. We light a candle of joy for that. David Peary shares that he fell and hurt his back, which kept him from coming to church today. David, we light a candle of concern for you, and we hope you're feeling better soon. And Amber just amended. She wanted to say that she was grateful for the sharing that both the Beccas had. Okay. And that's all we have online. We honor the complex and heartbreaking struggles of our world. We light a candle for all who are impacted. And in closing, for those joys and concerns that remain unspoken, we light a candle. May we hold each of these in our hearts and minds. May our community of love ease the sorrow and boost our celebrations. While we are in multiple physical spaces, we still share space together here in intentional community. And now, let us join together in 1 minute of shared silence, followed by Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The closing words today are Naming the Largest Truths by Reverend Vanessa Southern. May the stories we tell name the largest truths of what was, what is, and pull us forward to what should be, as stories were always meant to. The final hymn today is Just as Long as I Have Breath. It's number 6 in the gray hymnal. Feel free to stand if you'd like and sing.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though the pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer lust to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did worst, tell them I said yes to love.
We will now extinguish our communal and personal chalices and follow with our unison words. Our service here is ending. Our service to the world begins anew. Thank you, friends.